2007 Ford Escape 3-liter V6 alternator went bad. You've probably heard the stories about these. They are no fun. Well, hopefully I can make your life a little easier should you have the misfortune of a failed alternator on one of these cars. Recommended procedure for taking them out is through the bottom. You're supposed to pull the axle, which involves taking the snuckle off or disassembling all kinds of things. I've never done it that way. I'm not 100% convinced that alternator will even come through there with that axle off. So I go a different route, and I want to show you how I do it. One of the first things you want to do is get this tie rod end off and out of the way so that you can get your arm up in here and access these lower alternator bolts, or these alternator bolts. You have two on the bottom, which you can get in here with a long extension and a swivel socket and wind them out. Then you have this one on top that has a nut on it. Wind the nut off, and then you have to use a female Torx and wind the stud out. You have to take the stud out. Then you can undo your main nut for your power wire up here, which is real easy. And then on the other side, I come in from underneath with a pry bar, and I get up underneath this plug, and I flip that plug off. That plug is catching right there. This alternator previously had an air foil thingy on here that's long gone. Anyway, if yours still has that, then you have to take off these three nuts and remove that plastic airfoil. Whoever replaced this the last time just abandoned that airfoil. And I'm not 100% sure you need it, but anyway, if it's there and you want to put it back on, have at it. Now let's lower the car down. And this is where it may be a little bit intimidating to somebody that doesn't work on engines all the time. But to me, this is far easier than taking the axle off and the front suspension. I take and remove this upper intake manifold. To do that, you've got to take off a couple of bolts here that hold your EGR on. I remove the throttle body. I just take the 4 bolts out of the throttle body and lay it over there and leave the coolant lines connected. You have a couple of vacuum hoses you got to get off. Very self-explanatory. A couple of plugs. You got a little wiring harness on here with some plugs that plug your idle air control motor and that on. And then you got 8 bolts that go straight down. 5/16 socket, you wind them bolts out, and this upper intake just moves right over, right out of your way. Then going in the back, because you're going to be bringing that alternator up through this hole, I tried to do it without removing the valve cover. I think there's a way to do it, but I just got tired of fighting with it. So what I learned, I've done a couple of these, I just removed that valve cover. I just go down in there, and you got to take this harness off, which is 2 of these little nuts that hold that harness to the valve cover studs. Then you unstitch that valve cover, which is really straightforward. You got a series of bolts that run around the outside and 2 in the middle. Oh, you have to take your coil packs out. You got 3 of them. That's real easy. And then that valve cover just lifts right off. And the other thing you need to do is remove this air saver, this vacuum saver. It sits down in here, and there's just 2 nuts and a couple of vacuum connections. I unplug these plugs, get them out of the way. And with that harness undone, you can shove it out of your way. And then I take and pull this with a strap. I pull that power steering line out of the way, and look at the hole you got now. You can reach right down in there and lift that alternator right out. Piece of cake. So it may look intimidating, but it really isn't. It's really not a bad job at all. I've got about an hour and 15 minutes in this at this point, from start to where I'm at right now, having the alternator laying on the bench. So if this helps you, if you have one of these cars and you have this misfortune of a failed alternator, hopefully this will help you out. And thanks for watching.